This is how I went from paying $1,000 a month in rent to living for free and retiring at 31 just by house hacking.
Julia, it is so great to have you on the show. This is Jesse Ray, Growth House Podcast. Thank you for being on our show.
Thank you for having me. This is such a privilege. I love being in the same room with you, even if it's virtual.
I know, right? We'll talk all about Puerto Rico and how we got connected and what you're doing out there. But I kind of wanted to start off by letting people know how big of a deal you are, because you're way too humble, so you're not going to really say how big of a deal you are. But ladies and gentlemen, this lady has developed millions in real estate. That's plural. And what I like to also just note is that she's not one of these social media influencers. We all know those people that came up and made their money from the start by promoting courses, by promoting products. She was in the trenches, the trenches of Philadelphia, in Philly, rehabbing, remodeling, getting these properties, developing. And so I just think it's really important for, myself and us and our community to give you your flowers. So we appreciate you.
Thank you.
And before I turn it over to you, I just want to do, that's like an intro to an intro. So The other intro is you are a real estate developer, you're a designer, you're an investor, consultant, and maybe most importantly, we'll talk about this, but you're a hippie too. So
yeah.
I think it's good to note that for those who think you have to have all this money, one of the main questions I get asked, Jesse, I don't have any money to get into real estate. You bought your first house with $11 in your bank account.
Sure did.
So, Julia, we need to hear the story before you go back and share the come up story. Where are you at right now? What does your portfolio look like? And maybe what fun project are you working on?
Yeah. So this is 7 years later. When I first got started in real estate, I gave myself a 5-year plan. I didn't want to be a real estate investor to have the job title real estate investor. I wanted to use it as a vehicle to the life that I wanted to live, which, isn't a job title of being a landlord or private equity, like fundraiser, like all of these different things that are parts of the journey. I was just using that as a means. And, I got started with none of my own money. I bought my very first property, and I house hacked a single family, right? Like I learned about house hacking, I think through the Bigger Pockets podcast. And I knew that that was going to be how I got started. And I really understood and appreciated the power of having someone else pay for my living expenses, right? Because that is your biggest expense. Like any given person, I'm sure, could write down a list of where their money's going. And it's usually housing, car, food. Housing is almost always at the top. So I'm like, if I can remove that one thing, then I will have the confidence to do this thing full time, because now most of my expenses are gone. So that very first property, and I wanted the fourplex, I wanted the triplex. I was like, I'll settle for a duplex. And I was so hungry, and I was like, I hate my job. All I could do is think, eat, and breathe real estate. I'm listening to podcasts and going to meetups every time I could find one. I'm driving to Philly and touring neighborhoods and doing coffee. It fully consumed me, and I was like, I can't wait anymore. So I bought a single family home, and I lived in the smallest bedroom, right? Because I knew that the nicer bedrooms would get more money. And I rented out the one room for $600, the other room for $500. My mortgage was $700. Living for free. They're paying for my groceries too. And that's when I went all in and I became a full-time investor. I'm like, I'm going to put all my eggs in this basket. And that's how that was the beginning.
So hold up. You went all in. Does that mean you literally quit your job and was just like, I have the confidence now to go all in real estate?
I literally quit my job and I reverse engineered it, right? Because I knew that, if I don't have this income, what are my expenses? and what is the worst case scenario. So I'm like a big reverse engineer fan, right? Like, so this is the
Mm-hmm.
goal. Okay, what are you going to do about it? How do you dissect that into tangible steps, right? So it's like, I want to buy a house. So many people like throw out, I want to buy a house, but it's like, okay, how's your credit? Did you get a pre-approval yet? Are you going through all of the
Yes.
preliminary steps to get to the point to be able to buy that house? Like, reverse engineer the goal and give yourself tangible steps. So when I did that, and then I also analyzed what's the worst thing that could happen, and I realized that the worst thing that could happen is that I have to get a job again. I'm like, that ain't that bad. So I
Yes.
send it.
I love it. I think it's so true because people are like, what if, what if? And they say, like, what's the worst situation? Your worst situation is your current reality. If you hate that job so much and it sucks that bad, you just go find another one after you give it a shot. So I want to actually back up just a little bit. Since you only had $11 in your bank account, how were you able to, get into that house hack? And can you walk us maybe through that first deal?
Yeah, so the very first deal that I bought, I actually, at that time I was like a workaholic. I was working three very low paying jobs. I was bartending, I was working in retail, I was a bank teller full time. I was also in school because I am a maniac. So I was able to save a little bit of money. And when I say I started with $11, I consider that for like once I close on this property, which I will be transparent, I took a cash advance on a credit card for $7,000. And I waited to get my pre-approval till after I took that $7,000, right? Because once you're pre-approved, you're in underwriting, you can't touch credit. So I did that first, then I got my pre-approval and I used those funds. And it was like 0% interest for 12 months. So I had 12 months to get this money back. And I just kind of did that over and over again. And I had a little bit of money saved through working that I was like, I can, over the next few months, feed myself. Right.
Wow. So a lot of people, go the VC route, and you went the VC route, but you just went Visa credit card instead of, venture
I
capital.
did.
that's
Yes.
that's incredible.
Yeah. And then after that, it was mostly private money.
Mm,
I was raising a lot of different forms of private money and structured it a ton of different ways. And I used that to fund the down payments for all of the commercial mortgages I would get for the burrs that I was doing and the fix and flips.
amazing. Okay, so you get that first property, you're living for free, and you're making a little bit of money. You say, "Screw this job. I hate it. I'm out. Burn the boats." Then what?
So I actually like the journey incorporated a lot of house hacking. So I left that first house. I rented out the third bedroom. So now my single family home with three bedrooms is now making 600, 500, and $400 a month on my $700 mortgage. And my second deal was I leased a property that was five bedrooms and it had a semi-finished basement,
Hmm.
and I lived in the basement and I rented out all of the five rooms. So I was again living for free and making a little bit of money over what my obligation for that lease was while I was renovating a triplex that I would later move into one of those units.
Talk about getting creative and being resourceful. Julia, what if someone's like, especially like I always tell people, if you're in your 20s and especially if you're single, like this is a no-brainer. House hacking is the way to go. But for those people, Julia, that's like, I don't know. I don't like roommates. I don't know if I can handle that. What would you say to those people?
I mean, for me, it was like, I don't like roommates and I don't love living in a basement, but what do I like less, right? Like the juice was worth the squeeze. Like when I tell you that I'm now house hacking a retreat center on 15 acres in the mountains of Puerto Rico and it's like paradise. Like I still am not paying this mortgage. It's funny, like me and my girlfriend who we run the Strategic Hippie podcast, we're doing this house hacking webinar, and we're like, "Who gonna pay my mortgage?" And we're both like, "Not it." We're like,
I love
I'm
it.
just not interested in paying my mortgage if I don't have to. And like, is this forever? Who knows? But for right now, it's like there are so many ways to get creative.
Hmm.
And, house hacking is the easiest and most like comfortable way to invest in real estate if you don't have a ton of capital, if you don't have like a ton of resources. It's just like a no-brainer.
So true. So you're living in the basement, you're doing this triplex, and then what happens after this? 'Cause I feel like, because you said 5 years, it took 5 years of you sacrifice investing in yourself before you reach this level of financial independence and freedom.
Yeah, and I've been trying to like keep spark notes, but right, like this part of the journey was like I had built out a construction company. I met another woman who was also a real estate investor and had active projects, and she was running a real estate community. And I had introduced myself. I said, one day I want to teach people how to manage their construction projects because I have not been able to find any resources. And I got my GC license. I'm managing my own property, my own projects. And the whole first year was like what not to do, right? And what systems to build into this business to be able to successfully renovate properties, right? Like to be able to do the BRRRR method, to do fix and flip successfully, because the hardest part and the most important part is the construction. So,
Mm-hmm.
for that 5 years, it was like, it was a lot of hustle, I'll be honest, like Home Depot, like managing contractors. I was doing client work. I was developing other investors' projects. I started the interior design company. I started consulting. So I would go through other investors' projects and basically give them a blueprint of like, this is where you're at. This is the person you call next. This is the person you call after that. This is what you need to be spending on these things. And, through that journey and seeing that there was like such a need, right? So like when I
Mm-hmm.
had this conversation with my partner in the class, Nicole, I was like, we need to teach this class. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing out here. So, by year 3 or so in the business, we had built out the construction management course for real estate investors. And, I that was always my comfy space in real estate. Like I love construction, I love development, I love being on site. I hate being at the computer. I don't want to be doing the 1099s or the book. I don't want to do anything other than designing and managing and doing truck, like jumping in the truck and running and grabbing materials. Like that's where I shine. I just love construction.
Well, I have nightmares of Home Depot, and I always joke that I don't even know how to hang a picture. And the sad thing is, as I say that, people would call me out and be like, "You're not joking. You actually don't know how to hang a picture." So that's a
But
skill
I
set
know
I probably should
I'm
learn.
resourceful enough to find the right person for the job.
Exactly. Let's talk about this real quick. This is a very male dominated industry. Real estate, I think in general, probably still. But then you go into GC work. I think a lot of people could easily pull the victim card and say, this is probably not a good space for me to be in, but you excelled. So walk me through that process and, what you share with other women that maybe enter male dominated, industries.
I guess this kind of also is like ties back to the concept and the importance of community, right? Like it
Mm-hmm.
was so important for me to find other women in the space and
Mm-hmm.
build community in like with other real estate investors. Like the one thing I did was, there was a bunch of women in real estate all doing their own thing, and I was like, once a month, let's do dinner. Like, let's support each
Yes.
other. And it's true. It is a very male dominated industry. I like there's a lot of like yucky things that have happened to me and a lot of like very unfavorable situations I've been in. And, a lot of it was like learning a lot about myself and how to kind of like how I want to show up in my business and also like immediately who's for me and who's not. Right. So like
Mm-hmm.
I've had situations like I can write a book on these stories, but like I had one project, the next door neighbor had an issue with our job site and refused to talk to me. Like he would ask for like every time he wanted to ask for who was in charge, they would point to me and he was like, no, I'm not talking to her. I'm like,
Wow.
all right, buddy, it's 2020.
Come on,
Leave
man.
women be out here. I'm sorry. You want this problem fixed or not? And one of my subcontractors, I obviously didn't work with them again, like refused to like communicate with me about payments. He
Hmm.
like would go to the first man on site and be like, "Oh, well, Julia needs to pay this invoice," and I was like, "I have my checkbook in the car. As soon as you bring me the invoice, I'll pay it." Like,
Who's got the money? I got the money. You better
it's
come talk to me.
so weird. It is
That's
like it's
wild.
so weird.
That's
And
wild.
I will say, like, you know, one of the most important things that I believe and that I talk about these days is that, the wealth building journey is a spiritual journey. And the amount of like
Hmm.
self development that I've experienced um, through this journey of investing in real estate. And, like in the beginning, like 7 years ago, right? Like I am not the person I was 7 years ago. Like, who is that?
Hmm.
Like no idea who that is.
Yes.
And but at the time it was like, I don't like using negative words, but it was like I was so eager and excited and hungry and like I was a yes man. And like today I love saying no. Like, right. I was getting myself into like tough situations because I was breaking my own promises and things like, well, I want to invest in real estate and I know why I want to invest in real estate, right? Like your
Hmm.
why is the most important thing when you're on this journey. And I knew I didn't want employees and I didn't want partners. And I
Hmm.
broke both of those rules in my first year. And when I tell you that God was like, this is going to be a lesson, like it was, it couldn't have gone any worse.
Hmm.
I don't think. And it took me 3 years to recover from a bad partnership. And, I like to talk about, you had asked, what was your biggest failure? And, a lesson and that I've had to bounce back from. And it was like this journey of getting into partnership with someone who was just really, really sick. And I didn't
Hmm.
see it because I admired this person for where they were at. They had over 150 properties. They had this construction company. I wanted what they had at the time. And, I said yes to a partnership without knowing this person. And 3 years later, there's a dozen different lawsuits going on. I have a protection from abuse order. I'm a few $100,000 in the hole. I have buildings getting foreclosed on because of this one decision to partner with somebody.
Hmm.
So, today I'm like, I'm so grateful that one, that happened when it happened. It happened early on because the lessons I learned from that, I'd like to think I'd never repeat. So that's really important. And two, the things that I've learned about myself and why I ended up in that situation and how today being an intentional investor is key, right? Like I don't say yes to things right away. And I really, am strategic and intentional and I take my time. And, and the most important thing is like, I invite God into my business. Like, I do not make any decisions quickly and alone. Like, I receive guidance and, you know, this has been from day one to here. Like I said, like, I did not have a God 7 years ago. I was just like, young and hungry and didn't know better. And today I do. So I think that would
Wow.
be probably my biggest challenge, but also like what an amazing gift I got from it.
It's so amazing. And I think it's so true because everyone gets caught up like, I want to become a millionaire. They have this like materialistic goal usually, but it's like the journey. It's who you become in the process of reaching that. If you didn't do this in real estate, you probably stayed at your other job. You wouldn't get all these learning lessons and become the woman that you are now. I love
Mm-hmm.
that example. And obviously, you power through it. I'm sure we can go dive into that more, but I actually do want to like talk about partnerships because a lot of people almost kind of need partnerships to maybe get started. And I say that because some people maybe don't have the capital, etc. I mean, they could go the credit card way like you did. So I've never heard that one. So I love the resourcefulness. I love these creative stories because it inspires someone else to be creative too. There is ways around just everyone thinks 20% down, this, that, and that. My credit got to be whatever. I got to have 18 years of good incomes, I guess. No, there's other ways.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about partnerships though. And honestly, I'm asking this for myself because I'm looking to get into more partnerships. What are 2 to 3, we'll play a game, red flags of
Ooh.
partnerships?
Yes. So, oh, I love this question because I've declared like where I'm at now, like I'm not interested in doing things alone anymore, right? Like we
Mm-hmm.
both know the power of community and the power of partnerships, the right partnerships and the right communities. Like go further, farther together, right? And
Yes.
further, faster. And I had done things alone for a long time. I was raising money, which is a form of partnership. I had lenders. I had, there was a lot of things, obviously, like your typical real estate investor. There's tenants, there's, agents, all the things. But, right now, as I look for partners in my venture, is I meet with them in person and so recently I'll just tell the story and maybe the lesson comes through the story and I went and saw a deal that this person was looking for a partner and they were seeking someone with construction management experience. And they had the deal figured out. They needed someone to help with this part. And I'm like, that's my spot, right? Like this is where I shine. So I walked through the project with them and I said right away, I'm like, listen, like I'm not someone to say yes to something right away. This is the start of the journey and I want to get to know what you have here. I want to get to know you and over the next few weeks we like met for breakfast and it felt so good
Mm.
to be at a table with other people and be honest about like what you're good at, what you're not good at, like what your habits are. And like these days I'm like I hate talking on the phone and I don't like waking up early. Like that's just it, right? Like I didn't do all of the things I did to live a life I don't want to live. Like, I will find the right
Yes.
partner.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, you get to decide those things when you take care of that financial independence. You get to decide, what is my life going to look like? I love that.
Yeah. And I like the joy of partnerships is the finding people with the opposite. And like
Mm-hmm.
me and my partner Mickey on the podcast, we always bask in how opposite we are because it makes for such a perfect balance, right? Like if
Mm.
we both loved like writing and content creation, then it wouldn't work. But like one of us loves doing that and she handles that part of the business and
Mm-hmm.
I get to handle the other parts that I really enjoy. So I would say just taking your time and getting to know someone. It's like you go on a date 3 times before you decide like, do I want to see? Is this person like really worth like continuing seeing? So kind of doing the same thing with that, and also like Google people. Let's keep it simple. It is 2024. You better Google them.
So what's a red flag if you Googled somebody that might be a potential partner and you see this? What's
Ooh,
this?
like any kind of like lawsuit or police like arrest sheet like
Yes.
you
Mirror
know
selfies, probably no mirror selfies either.
oh yeah, I'm judgy, like
Yes.
yeah.
So you mentioned something like, I would say, a green flag, if that's even a thing. It's look for the opposite. Look for someone with the different strengths than you, because you don't want someone that's the same, right?
Right.
What is something that you can do? You said meet with them a couple times. What else? Like, how would you do your due diligence to really know, like, okay, got it. This is someone that is legit and I want to work with them.
So I actually have done some like writing on like what a what a good partner looks like for me and what I have to offer in a partnership. So that's like a good blueprint for green flags. And also like boundaries are really important, right? So for
Mm.
me, like I ended up like not proceeding the opportunity to partner with somebody because they wasted 3 hours of my time. And this was like the third time we were going to meet. And I'm like, that's a hard no for me. Like this is early on. This is not what I want my business to look like. And if you're doing this now and it wasn't an emergency, right? Like I understand that like some things come up, but so that was for me like, wow, it's really disappointing that I was excited about this thing, but I also have to have boundaries and know that that's not okay with how I do business.
So good. So we keep on talking about community, how important that is. You have a community that you've built. I want you to share a little bit about that and also maybe before that, share the benefits that you've gotten through being a part of a community, being part of a mastermind. And guys, I'm gonna say this straight up: if it's a free community, the people in there are not taking it serious. You pay attention when you pay, and that's something that I messed around with for way too long, going to these free networking events, handing business cards to each other, and doing no business. People that do the business are in these intimate rooms. And also
Mm,
for me, the belief that I get in myself when I'm shoulder to shoulder rubbing elbows with these people and actually getting to know them, and they're worth 8, 9 figures. And I'm like, they can do that. I could do that. That's one
mm.
of my biggest things that I take away from being a part of a mastermind. So I'll turn the floor over to you, and you kind of, share about your experience.
Ooh, man, like I don't even know where to start. I would say that like community is the foundation to everything. And,
Mm.
I've always pushed networking. Like I remember, you know, I had just moved to Philly. I just started my business. I started this video blog called That Millennial John because like John is like a Philly word. And I
Yep.
would just like talk about how I'm on my way to this networking event or I'm on my way and how important it is. It's not what you know, it's who you know. Your net worth is your network. Like all of the corny things. It's just, I believe in it so hard. And like, I put myself in these rooms. And, the best advice that I ever got, and I still say this to this day, like over 7 years later, it's like join a real estate community and get popular in that community. So I would
Mm.
show up to these meetings and I would introduce myself to everyone and I would say my goals out loud. And my goals are allowed to change, right? Like I just have to have something that day to be like, oh, for me at this time, I was renovating properties in a very specific neighborhood. I wanted everyone I met to know that I'm buying properties in this neighborhood. And then I'm planting these seeds, and 6 months later, I get a phone call. Hey, Julie, I thought of you because this deal popped up. Yes, I want you to think
Yes.
specifically of me when a deal there pops up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, my involvement in different communities has evolved a lot over the 7 years. But the best thing I ever did was there's a real estate community called Better Than Success, and I started showing up to that every single Wednesday. We would do different tours, different masterminds, courses. We did the whole thing, and I immediately went to the founder of the community and I said, I need to be involved in this. I need to help you. How can I support you? I want to teach. And she was like, let's go. Let's sit down next week and let's design this course. And,
Love it.
me being such an advocate for community, like I ended up partnering with her and, I help people learn how to get started in real estate through this community. And through the Better Than Success real estate community, I found we call it a sub community, right? So that's where the strategic hippie was born. So there
Mm.
are so many different types of people who invest in real estate, and there's so many different ways to invest in real estate. And I found this little group of people. My one friend who's now my partner in strategic hippie, uh, who aligned spiritually and like our whys were the same and we're like anti grind culture. And I was like, yo, I got burnt out, right? Like I do not want to conduct business the way I've been doing. And our whys were very similar. We wanted to use real estate as a tool, not as the end game, right? Real estate is a tool to get me to my dream project that I'm sitting on today. And,
Love
so
it.
now like we have this big real estate community that is like all over the map in terms of like we teach like subject to seller finance, all the different like high level investing strategies. And then there's this sub community of like, wait, but to be able to show up intentionally and enjoy, then I need to be an intentional investor that prioritizes self development and mindfulness. And it's like that concept of the wealth building journey is a spiritual journey and inviting God into your business and, handling all of these problems. Because at the end of the day, we are landlords, right? Like we are stewards of different things. And how do we show up and how do we take care of ourselves? Because that's the foundation. I saw
So
you
good.
wanted to say something.
Oh no, I was just like, might as well mic drop right there. It's so good.
Yes. So
So
that was
okay,
strategic hippie was born.
that's amazing. That's amazing. And I guess I want you to like, because people hit me up all the time. Jesse, how do I get involved? I don't know who to network with. ladies and gentlemen, you have now a community that could be for you. She literally just described who it's for. And I think it's really important to join those type of communities, especially when um, they're niche. I think those are the best because it's cool to be in a community that's like broad, but if you're trying to do something specific, you want to have more mindfulness, spirituality in your business, bring God into your business. It's like, I love that. I want you to dive a little bit deeper into that community. What does that look like for the people that are in it? Is it like weekly calls? What does it look like?
Yeah. So, this, like I said, was a product of Better Than Success, which I'm still also like heavily involved in. We have 10 live events a week. We have masterminds every Wednesday. Sometimes they're in person, either in Philly or LA. Like we're starting to like open up different like hubs around the country. So those are we were born in Philly, and then our founder is now in LA, so she's doing stuff out there. Another person on the team is in San Diego. And we have the best part of this community, in my opinion, is what we call the AI mentor. So members will take an assessment, and it will basically provide a 1 year training blueprint from all of our content that we've developed over the last 7 years. And it's like, all right, do you have money? Do you not have money? Do you have time? Like, how do you want your investing to look? And we develop a customized training program. And we
That's so
also have,
cool.
yeah, it's amazing. So we have that, which is, a little bit self-guided. And then we also do our like group coaching and accountability. We do deal analysis. So every single week we're meeting and analyzing live deals. The group coaching accountability is also just like an amazing resource because, rather than paying for a coach, you get to show up in these rooms and stay accountable. And then for Strategic Hippie, we do once a month a Strategic Hippie workshop, which is, usually starts with a meditation. We do a business slash, spiritual reading. And then we talk about how, as entrepreneurs and investors, we're applying these principles in our businesses. House hacking is like, my one of my favorite real estate investing strategies, and my partner
Yes.
Nikki hers as well. And it's just as a creative entrepreneur and how I want my life to look outside of the hustle and bustle of building a portfolio is house hacking was the foundation. So we just built out a webinar that we're going to also do monthly, and all of this can be found at strategichippie.com.
Let's go. I'm the biggest fan of house hacking. Literally. The whole goal of Growth House is for people to come, they just graduate, young professionals, they come live in these houses together with like-minded people. But I tell them, guys, this is not the end. Like, I want you to stay within our community of houses as long as you want. But our goal is to get you your own house. And maybe you love this concept so much that you go house hack a house. So
Mm-hmm.
I love that. House hack is like my biggest favorite thing in real estate.
Me too. It like makes way too much sense.
I know and you're still doing it, which I love, even though you're doing it in a crazy cool way. I want to talk more about what you're doing out there in Puerto Rico. But you mentioned something super important. So, guys, when you're starting out and you're wanting to go to these networking events, you said, I want to be the most popular person there. And for me, and I want you to kind of talk about what's the strategies that you use to become the most popular. For me, if you want to become the most popular person in a networking group, be the most interested, not the most interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, bring energy. Like, there's so many people that are going through life just kind of like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. Shout out, one of the best TV shows of all time back in the day. But they're living life just kind of zombies. And if you bring a spark, you bring an energy into that room, you are going to be remembered. And then, like you said, I guess number three for me would be know exactly why you're there, be intentional. Is there anything you want to add to that?
I don't think so. So, the one thing that, I like, one of my favorite things about myself is that I will always like encourage people to chase their dreams. Like, because 9 times out of 10, if you say your goal out loud to somebody who most of the time hasn't done the thing that you're setting out to do, they're like, oh, but, and I I still got started in real estate really young, but it took me 6 years from the time that the seed was planted, because the voices I heard were, you don't know how hard it is to be a landlord. It's a dog eat dog world. Real estate isn't for girls. All of this negativity coming from the people that I loved and trusted the most. And, today when people call me and they're like, I want to go do that thing. And I already know that they're getting that already, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
that's most people's baseline is like fear, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, listen, if you have a calling to do something, I'm here for it. Unless it's
Love
like,
that.
unless it doesn't make any sense, then I'll be like, well, you could, but
So if you get that phrase from Julia, well, you could, she doesn't really believe it.
yeah, I'm like watching my friend go through it now. Like, and he's at a W-2. It's like a high,
Mm.
and he's consulting all the people that he works with, and they're all giving them this feedback on him chasing this dream that he wants. And it's all fear. And then I'm like, have any of the people done this thing that you're going to go out to do? Because for
Mm.
me, it took 6 years to put two and two together. And I was like, wow, this person that I really want to support me told me that they don't know how hard it is. I don't know how hard it is to be a landlord, but they weren't a landlord.
Mm.
I didn't realize that. I'm like, man, I don't know how hard it is to be a landlord. And I would like cling to these things. And then I'm like, wait a second. This person doesn't do construction. This person isn't a real
Mm.
estate investor. This person isn't financially free. Let me find a
Yes.
financially free person and ask them what they think.
And I think one
Mm-hmm.
more thing, this is around the topic of community. You're going to have times when you start off where it's going to suck. You're going to take a bunch of L's, and I say those are learning lessons. Those are not failures. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to have struggles, but the community and the people around you, you're going to share what's going on. They're going to look at you and be like, I've been there. And guess what? This is how you get through. And if you don't have those people in your life, you're going to give up. That's what I believe. Like, I would have given up so long ago if I didn't have a coach, if I didn't hire coaches, if I didn't have mentors and people that, I paid to get around these communities and these masterminds that are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 levels and steps ahead of where I'm at in life and what I want to accomplish. I look for the people that had the lifestyle that I wanted. That's who I'm gravitating towards. That's who I'm asking those questions, not my family who hasn't done maybe X, Y, Z. So I love what you just said, Julie. That was so good. What is your why?
Oh,
We switched topics quick.
that was quick. It's so funny when you ask. Like, I've talked about this so much. I have a whole episode on why, and like in my webinars, I always start with my why, and it's just like my why is a feeling, right? And like what I want my life to look like is, freedom is at the core of everything. And I can say it simply: time freedom, location freedom, financial freedom. I want these things taken care of. I want to be where I want, when I want, and I don't want to have to worry about money to get there. And, I want to live a joyful life in alignment and being of service to other people. Like that, that is it. And real estate is the foundation for me to do that.
I love that. It's amazing. Can we get a little deeper? Can we go deeper, Julia? Are you good?
Dig,
All
grab the
right,
shovel.
all right. So I've had this like conversation, even battled this myself, where I'm thinking about like internal motivation, how people just have this kind of like edge, and why does someone accomplish these crazy successful things and they get beat up and knocked down, but they keep going after it, right? And
Mm,
so I see in a lot of successful people's stories, they have this internal drive. And I think it seems to stem from my perspective from like not being good enough in someone else's eyes,
mm,
as like someone that they love and close to them, not be good enough in someone's eyes. Usually this starts out when they're younger, and
mm,
then they hold on to that. And even when they're 30, 40, they're still chasing these goals. Like, I got to do better. They're like,
mm,
and they go back to that like mindset and think about that person. Is that resonated at all with you? I think it does for me. And
mm.
like, I was internalizing this today. I'll let you kind of just riff on that.
Yeah, and it totally goes back to like the wealth building journey is a spiritual journey, right? This is a journey of self development. And like there is like an addiction that can take place in business and real estate and investing. And there's this whole like the philosophy of like be here now, right? Like I didn't know how to do that because it's like we're chasing something, right? Oh, when I have 5 units, when I have 10 units, when I have 15 units, when I have 20, now I need 100. And it's like, at what point will I be happy? And the irony of how, you know, abundance and manifestation works is like we typically want something because of the feeling we think it will create. So if we first prioritize achieving the feeling, then we've reached our goal anyway, and we have that good
Mm,
feeling, and everything else comes so much easier. And, for me, there was definitely like a severe root of like low self-esteem and like never feeling good enough. And I couldn't comprehend, or I couldn't like attain feeling proud of myself. Right. And it didn't make sense because, like, on paper, it's like, I quit my job. I'm running 3 businesses. I have a real estate portfolio. I'm only 27. All of
mm,
these things. Why don't I feel proud of myself? And kind of working on that rather than like fill this God-sized hole, right? With like more of
yes.
anything, right? And we kind of like talked a little bit about this before, and I was like, I could fill this God-sized hole with anything, with more, and I'm trying, right? It doesn't work, but if it's like more money, more properties, more of something, then I'll just finally be happy. I'll finally feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And the gift of today, like loving myself, being proud of myself, having boundaries, knowing what I want and what I bring, like all of these things that I couldn't say honestly that I had 7 years ago. And like, recently, so I have this really exciting project that I'm on, and it's like my dream project.
Talk
Like
about it. Let's
everything I've
talk about it.
done is for me to be right here. Like
Yes.
I am just like I'm like I'm like spilling out with gratitude. And one thing that I'm doing different, right? Because a lot of what my journey was, I can now identify as like control, right? Like I want this thing and no one can stop me, and nothing can get in the way of it, rather than like pausing and aligning and allowing. And like these days I like to say the line that like I'm a participant in the life that's happening for me, rather than like
Mm,
I'm out here creating, because I also have found, like, I shared a little bit of like my story that, it has a lot of trauma in it. And it's like, when I push for what I want, like, look at what I got. So maybe there's
yes.
another way of like, rather than being the one in control, maybe I get to show up. And like, I already believe that like, I can make great decisions, and I can be discerning, and I know how to like communicate well. So like if I can just trust that like as things come, I'll be able to I'll trust that it'll work out. Then, this project is like, people say, what's your business plan? Oh, God's got it. Like I have like a few models of what I think I want it to look like, but also I'm so much more excited for how it's going to unfold for me, because I have
Mm,
the foundation here of like so much opportunity. And I feel like I'd be leaving something on the table if I just clung to one and like forced it. So it's, go ahead.
Julia, people are listening to this and being like, she's got so much energy and passion about this. We want to know what it is. Can you give us a little teaser? Like, what are we talking about? I obviously know because we said it off the podcast, but Julia,
Yeah.
fill us in. What are you building out there?
Okay, so here in Puerto Rico, I am house hacking and renovating a retreat center. So this is a community center event space. It's called Un Sitio de Abundancia. It's a place of abundance. And,
Wow.
the core is joy, upskilling, community, events. And I want everyone who steps foot on this property to leave with something that's going to make their life better. Whether it's like,
Mm,
we're doing personal development in terms of like yoga, breath work, workshops, like things like that, but also like upskilling, like, what can we learn here together that you can now leave and go make money with? right? And maybe it's like
Amazing.
broad, like let's talk about real estate investing, like let's do a mastermind. But I also like want to build tree houses, and I want to build like off-grid sustainable systems here, and it's 15 acres. I want to be doing regenerative agriculture, and I want to share with everyone what I learn about the importance of, you know, growing your own food and using food as medicine, and like all of these things that are so healing. And you know, I'm doing that here, and I'm doing it alongside with other people who have similar passions. And these people have come to me. Like, I haven't posted a single ad saying, I want people to come here and do these things with me. Like, I, it's got an event space. It's like a whole venue. It's got 10 suites. It's like a hotel here. It's got a second house, which I'm in right now. It's my office. And, you know, I am just open and allowing, and I'm really embodying Deepak Chopra's like law of least effort, right? And just being here and seeing how things can come to me. And I kind of feel like a magician in a way. And it's like mind blowing, some of this, like this serendipitous things that are taking place here, like the people that end up here by accident. And like this woman who, you know, she's from Philly. She like, I had a work exchange person here because that's like another model I'm seeing out right now, which has been a lot of fun. I have people come staying and helping me with different projects around here. And she's an architect and a structural engineer, and a mechanic. She got her undergrad in mechanical engineering, and we're currently battling like water issues. And she's like teaching me all of these things. I was like, I didn't even ask. Like all of these gifts. And yes, I'm just a participant. I'm just a steward of this project and whatever God has for me. And I think it's going to help a lot of people.
That's so beautiful. Say that name again. I love the sound of that name. The name of the place.
So the name is La Montaña Manatí, which means Manatí Mountain, and the tagline is Un sitio de abundancia, a place
That's
of
amazing.
abundance.
Future Growth House Retreat.
Yes,
Yes, got to make it
yes.
happen.
The views are insane. Like you can see the coast. We're at the highest point. You can see the mountains. We have a pool, hot tub, hikes. It's
Let's
complain.
go. I love it. I love it. More of like a technical, I think it's not a technical question, but if you were to, like someone that's new, they want to get their first 1, 2, 3 houses, is there a book or podcast that you would recommend?
Ooh, okay. So this is like, you know, I still hate saying this out loud because it is the thing that changed my life. And at this point, I'm like, I wish there was something else. I
Rich
read
Dad Poor Dad? We're all the same. We all read it. That's what changed our life.
You know, I read it in high school, and I was like,
Oh, you're
you know,
early.
there was no chance for me like ending up in a corporate job. Like I read that book really young, and I was like, why would I do anything other than invest and build business? Like,
Yes.
why? You know, and you know how that has grown now. Like my favorite book today is Creating Money. So it's a spiritual business book, right? And it's kind of similar. I like Creating Money. I think it's the psychology of money. All of these people who have like mastered the concept of how you have a healthy relationship with wealth, and
Mm-hmm.
what, you know, the law of attraction and manifestation actually is, and you know, really reverse engineering what your goals are. And I think the most important thing for me when I like get excited about a goal and I was like, but why? I think this will make me feel a certain way. Oh, like if I have all this money, why? Like, why do I want that? Right.
Mm.
And, you know, just kind of diving more deeper into my relationship with wealth and spirituality rather than the fundamentals, which are also very important, of course. But I'm a real estate nerd all day.
So a lot of people out here in real estate are saying you got to have all these tools in your tool belt and be able to do short-term rentals, midterm rentals, long-term co-living, etc. There's all these different strategies, right? And you got to learn them all. What's your thoughts on someone just specializing, especially maybe for the first couple properties, maybe your first 6, 7 figures, and then expanding and having more tools in the tool belt versus trying to do everything kind of at the same time?
So I can only share from my experience of trying to do all of the things and how that didn't work for me.
Well, there you go. That's the answer.
Oh, I mean, I don't know what it's like to focus on one thing and build from there.
Hmm.
But there is definitely like riches in the niches, like master your craft. It was part of me being like a yes man, right? My first 2 years, I had wholesaled, I had, raised private money, I had used business credit, I was doing fix and flips, I was doing all of the things. And I was also in the process, not outsourcing anything. So like I was even taking photos of the property and listing. I was a realtor and I was listing the properties myself. And, by year 4, I'm like, what can I not like what can I not outsource? Right? Like anything possible. Absolutely anything
Yes.
possible. Like you do it.
I love it. So we have a special segment where we have 2 questions from people that wanted to ask you questions. So we put up on Instagram, say, hey, here's the question, or here's, ask a question. And so
Mhm.
here's the 2 questions.
Are we live
Tom,
on Instagram?
we're not live, but they're gonna
Okay.
see this. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
probably should figure that out. But the Tom Crawford, shout out my friend Tom. He said, if you had to start over today with $0, how would you get your first deal?
Um, Credit cards or partnerships.
And then what strategy would you use? I think I know it.
So I would either, you know, when you don't have the money, you need to have the skills. So you're either sweat equity or you're like money equity.
Mm-hmm.
So the one thing I did since I didn't have any money, it was like I know my market, I know how to do the burn method. I'm going to all these masterminds. I'm a sponge. I can take that energy. And I was showing up in spaces and they're like, damn, Julia knows real estate. I got money. I don't have any of the knowledge she has. She seems like the person to partner with. And that
Mm-hmm.
worked, right? Like I had a lot of like friends and family type private investors at first because anywhere you took me, all I could do was talk about real estate. They knew that I was going to figure this thing out. And, so partnerships are really powerful, but knowing that you need a value in your partner. You can't like, oh, I want to do real estate. I don't have any money. Let me find someone with money. Like, why are you worth someone with money partnering with? So,
Yes. I think I've
and,
heard you talk about it, kind of like what is your unfair advantage? And
yeah.
then I'm guessing house hacking would be maybe your first house.
Exactly. Absolutely.
So if we haven't said it enough, we're fans of house hacking.
Yeah, I want to bully everyone into house hacking.
Shout out the course real quick, and I'll put it in the show notes. But you have a course coming out when?
Yeah, so it's on February 24th. It's Saturday, and you can go to strategichippie.com, and the course is called We're Not Who's Paying My Mortgage?
I
How to House
love that. I
Hack.
love that. I might just have to hop in there just to like see what's up.
Yes.
It changed my life. Alex Maya, he has a question. He said, when do you know when it's time to quit, like your corporate job, and go all in on yourself? You went all in on yourself the day you closed, I think.
I mean, so it's twofold, right? There's the emotional part, and you need to master that first because you can have all the money, savings, security in the world. And if you don't have like a sense of security around your resources, and, there's fear and love, right? And there's abundance or scarcity. And if you're thinking in scarcity, it's not time.
Mm.
So, like, get on the side of abundance. What does that look like? Creating money, that book, like any of these, like, there's such an amazing amount of resources. So that's the first fold is like the emotional relationship with money part, and the second fold is let's talk about the logistics, right? So do you have what will give you a peace of mind? 6 months of expenses saved, 3 months of expenses saved. Once you get your house hack and you remove your biggest expense, does that change your fundamental need for this job because now you don't need to make as much, right? So
Mm.
like, and that was the thing for me. It was like I might not be making money yet while I start this real estate business, but also I don't have to be spending money, right? My car was paid off. I didn't have a housing expense. It was like, what did I need money for? Like,
Yeah. So good. I didn't even think about that emotional piece of it because I definitely went through that too. And then also, like you said, it's different for everyone. Like everyone has a different risk tolerance. I personally waited until I could replace my W-2, my six-figure sales job
mm,
before I said, all right, I'm comfortable enough and I have the abundance mindset now that I can go chase now my dreams and my passions. So it just really depends on, yeah, those two things. I love that.
yeah. I mean, money doesn't provide financial security. Like when you think about it,
Mm-hmm.
like sometimes, I like to tell the story. It's like one day I could be in total financial fear, and the next day I could be feeling abundance. But the fact that my financial situation hasn't changed from yesterday to today, right? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a friend who has like almost six figures saved up, and they don't want to leave their job yet. I'm like, bro.
Yeah. I definitely believe like God definitely called me. It was time to leave
Mm,
because quick story. I guess usually don't share this story, but quick story. I wrote down my goals, right? And I said by February 2022, I believe it was, I'm going to quit my corporate job. The whole year I'm going through and my whole mindset was, no, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet.
mm,
I get fired from my position. And then they said, do you want this other position? And I said, yeah, because I'm not ready yet. And long story short, when I met with them and I'm thinking about it, and they said I had a severance, and the severance would end February 2022. And I was like, all right, God, it's time. I'm going to listen to you. So it's so true.
Skills. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
no, when you ask, you receive. Like the guidance is there, and these days, like I like to behave and make decisions off of like if it's not a hell yes, then it's a no. Like
I
I do
like that.
things like when I feel like this is the right.
So just lastly, Growth House, we're a community of go-givers. We want to provide value to you. So what can we potentially help you with?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, so my brand the last 7 years has been Brick House Builders. Like people call me Brick House. It was always fun, like driving around North Philly and be like Brick House.
Brick House.
Everyone knew my actual name. They knew my dog's name. Everyone knows my dog's name because she's like
That's
all over my
hilarious.
Instagram. But Brick
Is
House
that a Philly? Is that a Philly thing that people in Philly just go by nicknames? Like my friend Top
House.
Dog, who you know?
Oh, like that John. um, I would say like today, like this project is my whole heart and focus right now. If people want to get involved in any capacity, if they feel aligned with the mission of being of service, being in community, upskilling, renovating together, building together, learning together, sharing together. And the most important thing for me is that it's a sober and smoke free environment. This is a place
Mm,
for wellness and healing and joy and community. And I think that an important part of that for me is to provide a sober space. And so if anyone aligns with that and wants to learn more and get involved in some capacity, I'm here for that. And for those of you who want to tune into the strategic hippie and hear all about like creative entrepreneurship through self-development, you can check us out there. And that's all I got.
amazing. I have like 12 more questions that I wish we can get to. So can we do a part two? Can I come to
I
Puerto Rico and we'll
love,
do it in person?
yeah, come to Puerto Rico
All
already.
right. I'll
I'm
come
using
back. I'll
my
come back.
janky Wi-Fi. We can do it on the mountaintop.
There you go. I love it. I love it. Julia, it's an honor. It's a privilege to know you, become friends with you, and just thank you so much for pouring into our community. Anything that we can do or I can do, let me know. Jesse Ray, Growth House Podcast, and
The
we're out.
privilege is all mine, Jesse.